Kankakee County Law Enforcement meeting and the NAACP to order on Thursday, August 23rd, 12 noon. And I'd like a roll call of all the individuals present. We're going to start to my immediate left, back row with our state's attorney. Mr. Rowe, can you start? And we're going to the left from there.
Sure. Jim Rowe, Kankakee County State's Attorney.
You please use the microphone.
Sure. James Rowe, Kankakee County State's Attorney.
Chris Breach with the Daily Journal.
Craig Anderson, Bradley Police Department.
Don Barber, Bradley Police Department.
Doug Redenius, Bailiff Courthouse.
Timothy Harris, activist.
He did.
Timothy Harris, youth activist.
We're going to start over.
Todd Navratil, Roma Park.
Dave Skelly, Chief of St. Anne Police Department.
Jim Phelps, Bourbonnais Police Department.
Al Swinford, Mantino Police Department.
Chad Scanlon, Herscher Police Department.
Brian Brucato, Moments Police Department.
Carl Fry, Grant Park Police Department.
Aaron Hersey, Illinois State Police.
Myron Riley, Jail Ministry.
Carl Brown, I don't know what I am, just here.
Thought you was the public safety chair of the city of Kankakee.
Jim Simone, Kankakee County Hispanic Partnership and Sheriff's Department.
Lori Gaboy, Representative, NAACP Executive Committee.
Donnell Austin, Kankakee Police Department.
Frank Osmond, Chief of the Kankakee Police Department.
Kankakee City Police Department.
Andy Wheeler, Chairman, Kankakee County Board.
Steve Hunter, Vice Chairman of the NAACP Hispanic Partnership, Alderman Emeritus, County Board.
Ted Tynes, Pembroke Township, IG Department.
Trent Wills, Kankakee NAACP Youth Council President.
Vince Davis, Pembroke Township Inspector General.
Brenda Miles, Pembroke Township Supervisor.
I'm Theodis Pace, President of the Kankakee County branch of the NAACP.
Mike Downey, Kankakee County Sheriff.
And we have Lieutenant Robert Mason just entered the meeting from the village of Bradley. I'd like to thank everyone again for taking their time. It's been some trying times within the last month and a half, particularly with law enforcement, everyone talking about reform, police reform, and all of the different aspects of policies and procedure. However, for those individuals that are, if this is your first meeting, most of the individuals in this group, we've been meeting since Ferguson, since 2014. And the reason why this group and law enforcement and the NAACP here in Kankakee County has been meeting to ensure the citizens in our respective communities, and particularly communities of color, that incidents that happen in Minneapolis or Ferguson or Cleveland, Louisville, Kentucky, does not happen here in Kankakee. So we are up for the fight. We're up to meet the task of reviewing all our policies, procedure. We're up to the task of police reform. But I want to really strongly reinforce that here in Kankakee County in the NAACP, we've established a relationship where we, since 2014, we've been above the curve here in the state of Illinois to meet the need of law enforcement and improving the relationship between law enforcement and respective individuals in our community. So Lieutenant Mason just arrived, and what we're going to do, we're going to forego with the minutes until we can come back to that and go down to item 4 on the agenda. And I pretty much stated that the purpose of this meeting, and we met in June, on June 2nd. We met again on June 4th. We're meeting on June 23rd, and later we'll decide if there's a need. I think there was a conversation about we're meeting again in August. But again, this body, the members of law enforcement in Kankakee County, we've been addressing the 10 shared principles, which each municipality in Kankakee County have signed up on the 10 shared principles. However, in our executive committee meeting and in concert and conversation with Chief Swinford out of Mantino and Sheriff Downing, and with Chief Cosman, Deputy Chief Hunt, and Commander Austin, we have to focus on, again, as we look at this body, everybody here is considered on the administrative level. Those meetings, again, with the Chief of Mantino, Sheriff of Kankakee County, and the 3 people I just named from the city of Kankakee, our task now, and along with our state's attorney, how can we have these initiatives, Kankakee County Response Team, 8 Can't Wait, the 10 Shared Principles. How are we going to ensure our communities, the chief, all on the administrative level, how are we going to ensure the community that our initiatives are being disseminated down to the patrolman who's there every day, 24/7, who is the face of our respective communities or our respective police department. So we need to take about 5 or 10 minutes. I know Vice President Hunter and I talked maybe a week or 2 ago. A sheriff and I talked. How are we going to come up with maybe a metric? I know Deputy Chief Anderson, if I'm not mistaken, and Chief Barbara Bradley talked about that once our officers go through training, or they're signing off on a document attesting that I reviewed the 10 shared principle link from the Illinois Association of Police Chiefs. Are they really sold into the reforms that we're trying to do here in Kankakee County? You got Officer A, who's been around 25 years. Is that particular officer is going to be able to gravitate to the changing climates of policing? So Chief Pace already know I got 2 or 3 guys I might be hesitant knowing that they might not buy in to the new changes. How are we going to address those officers who might not be ready for change? So that I think that's our next story, and I just want you to convey what we're doing with some of the things with the 10 shared principle. You can take a few minutes up on that.
Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to do, and I've probably talked to Theodis more in the last month than I've talked to my wife, but that's okay. They were great conversations, and I feel like we got a lot accomplished. One of the things that we did, and we worked a little bit with Bradley on this, and one of the things we wanted to do was get some sort of a card that all of our officers in the entire county can have with them, whether it's in their visor if they have their own car, if it fits in their pocket, if it fits in their ticket book, wherever, so that they can reference the 10 shared principles. And so we have made, because we looked at trying to get these made, one of the problems, and I would think by looking at this crowd, everybody in this room has the same problem. The print on these cards are awfully small. So I can read them with these on, can't read them without it. Your younger guys should be able to read them, but we have cards for every police agency that is in here today. All you have to do is let us know how many you want, and we will give those to you so you can get to your officers. We thought that this was a good start, in addition to what Theodis said about how do we know that our staff is buying into those 10 shared principles. And I think that the short answer is we don't. But it's something that we have to do as administrators from a standpoint of training, standpoint of observing, from a standpoint of having your eyes open, your ears open, and finding out who's not buying in, and deal with those individuals. I think Theodis is right. The 25-year veteran, and not to pick on 25-year vets, because they could be the ones who do buy in. because they've been around long enough to know that change is inevitable. But there's something that we as administrators have to identify with. So we have the cards. Timothy in the back has the cards. He's got his hand up. So sometime before you leave, get with him and get him a number of how many cards you think you need. If you need more, after you get out of here, we can get you more. I know Bradley already has theirs. I think those will be beneficial to, at least as a reminder to not only us, but as a reminder to your officers that these are things that we need to keep in mind at all times while we're working.
Thank you, Sheriff. Additionally, I'd like to point something out with the individuals that are currently in attendance here. We got Mr. Timothy Harris, and we have Trent Wills. And the reason I want to point those two individuals out, Tim Harris was a conversation of our meeting on June 2nd and Thursday, June 4th. Mr. Harris led a protest on Sunday, May 30th, maybe. Quite impressed. Mr. Harris also was a speaker at the Kankakee County NAACP drive-in rally, which most individuals here supported. And we also have the president of the Kankakee County Youth Council, the NAACP. I'm saying that we brought in a number of youth, those individuals that actually participated in the rally on June 2nd. A lot of our young people that participated and attended the rally on Tuesday, June 2nd. So out of outgrowth of that rally, the sheriff hired Mr. Harris here to be summer intern. Mr. Harris currently attends Loyola University. Mr. Wills will be attending the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And so there was a number of other young people who actually spoke on the agenda of the rally on June 2nd. Alderman Hunter, County Board Hunter, helped me out. Dwayne Dean hired a number of these individuals for the summer, brought them in, and it was a thing of how can we utilize all this young energy, individuals that's in college. And one of the things that we're finding out, we got a number of our youth leave, go off to college, and they don't return here. We don't have Bridget, who teaches law enforcement at KCC, but it was also another thought of how can we get our young people, particularly other minorities and other individuals, back into law enforcement. It's a changing climate where individuals want to be in law enforcement today. How can we make that job, again, acceptable, where a person would want to be in law enforcement? So how you do that, you got to bring the young people in. We have to listen to them. And at the same time, we also give them the opportunity to be able to understand the ins and outs of the system, knowing the various policies and procedures that law enforcement endure every day. So I just want to say that. And so we're down to item 5, topics of discussion centered around police reform. And I'm going to turn it over to Chief Swinford from Manteno, along with Hunter and Lieutenant Mason.
Done the implementations of the 10 shared principles. Can you hear me? We've kind of hit on the 10 shared principles a little bit. I think the cards are an excellent idea. I think it's nice to have that physical reminder floating around your police cars and your police department of what you're committed to. But Theodos, you're right. It starts with the chief. Can you hear me? And hello. it really starts with the chief and the administration. You can say everything you want, but if you're not pushing it down to the department, it really is not going to do any good. I think we really need to look at all of our department policies and procedures to make sure each of those principles is reflected in there somewhere, because that is the document that guides all of our police departments, is our policies and procedures. I think we're fortunate for the most part. I think most of us have policies and procedures that are pretty up to speed and probably cover most of those, but I think it's important as the leaders of our department to make sure all of those things are reflected in there.
It's not necessarily a concern per se regarding the oversight and the assessment of the implementation. I know Commander Austin used to be the CALIA person for the city of Kankakee, but how do we assess the implementation? We may have the cards, etc. The county board president just indicated maybe we need billboards. Maybe we need to also pass out those cards to the consumers, regarding community-based organizations, those individuals who are stopped, by the officers. Maybe those things could be promulgated as well too. So those are kind of things that I think we need to provide as well too. We have this particular forum, which is unique, which will be seen by thousands of people in the county. This is this particular interface here, as the president has indicated, has gone on since Ferguson, dating back to 2014. This is probably one of the best kept secrets in the county, as well as the Kankakee County Renewed Opportunities. We probably need to air this consistently. Just to back up a little bit, based on what the president has indicated regarding the rally we had on June 2nd, and I'd like to offer some kudos. Lieutenant Mason, President Pace, and myself were on a teleconference June 1st, around noon. We got a text saying that the rally we had planned for the mall was off, and we had to find another venue, another location. So this is almost like 24 hours before the rally. Anyway, make a long story short, we had some venues that we were discussing. We made a phone call to the sheriff, and within a couple hours we had everything set up. Not only the venue, flatbed, security, ambulances, and everything else. And let me say further, the keynote speaker, of course, was our state's attorney. In addition to those individuals who are listening and watching this particular meeting, there are in excess of 700 people who came out to the fairgrounds to attend that rally. It was a diverse group. Law enforcement, county board people, mayors, aldermen, trustees. Law enforcement was well represented. We had the Hispanic Partnership president, who was a speaker as well too. So we're pleased that that we were ahead of the game in terms of what has been transpiring in the last couple months. So kudos to all the people here who participated and played a role. Our recorder of deeds was there too, running around in the hot weather, making sure that we didn't make any mistakes, and she was the glue that kept it all together. But I just want to say kudos to you guys for a job well done on that particular day. Mason?
Yeah, I was filling up my mouth still. So the other thing was what Chief Swinford was talking about is, and Sheriff Downey was that just hanging that poster on the wall doesn't really do anything even internally. So the cards is another helpful thing. I know one thing we've done, and I think I'm not speaking out of turn for sure, but I think because I made contact is that 10 shared principles video that was out there. We had each of the officers watch it and then sign off they watched it, just to kind of keep this filtering down the ranks. And then there's other training out there that we've been pushing out, like duty to intervene and duty to intercede, which falls along with this whole reform movement. So trying to stay on top of all that is what we're trying to push out to everybody within our department and throughout the county as well.
Wade, I think you might have just touched on the review of department policy and procedures, so you can go there, and then we can talk about the response team from there.
Sure. There's numerous police reform programs filtering around the country right now due to all the unrest. Some of them are more extreme than the others, but it seems like this 8 that can't wait is maybe one of the ones that's floating to the top. And basically, if you've not heard of it, it's 8 potential reforms for police nationwide that they're wanting police to adopt in their policy in one way or another. Fortunately, as backwards as Illinois is in a lot of ways, I think we're fortunate that they're ahead of the game on a lot of these. If you read through the reforms, I got them here in front of me. We can talk a little bit about them. We're actually way ahead of the game on most of these. We're already doing almost all of them. Banning chokeholds and strangleholds. Illinois outlawed chokeholds 5 years ago. There's a little semantics there with what's a chokehold and what's a stranglehold, but for the most part, Illinois outlawed those 5 years ago, and almost every department policy is probably already outlawed anything else. Require de-escalation. Again, Illinois started this years ago. I'm guessing every police department's officers in this room already have gone through de-escalation training. Many of us use Lexipol as our policy manual. They just came out with an update yesterday that they're stepping up the requirement for de-escalation. It's always been in there, but they've reviewed it and kind of stepped up the requirement to use de-escalation when possible. Require warnings before shootings, already in our policy. Requires exhaust all alternatives before shooting. That's on our use of force continuum. Duty to intervene is a hot topic right now with the Minnesota incident. That is also in our policy. However, that is being ratcheted up a little bit. What's lacking there a little bit is the training and exactly how officers are going to implement that. But I think we'll see a lot more training in that here coming soon. Ban shooting at moving vehicles. That's been our policy, I think, since I've been a police officer. Require the use of force continuum. That's taught right in the academy. And require comprehensive reporting. That's the one that probably needs a little bit of work. There's no nationwide reporting procedure. There's no national database yet. I think you're going to probably see that coming. So we don't really have a general database that we submit these things to. Each department might keep track of them. Each county might keep track of them, but there's not like a national database, but I'm guessing that'll be fixed shortly. So the 8 that can't wait, we're really running with 7 of those already, and we're just waiting for a national database for the 8th. So I think we're in pretty good shape on that.
Let's talk about the training. We have currently 2 individuals that's actually on the Kankakee response team. So can you touch on that? We have Doug, where are you? No, Doug and Myron. Okay, good. So we want to, can your committee talk about the upcoming training, the process that we went through, the letters that went out 2 weeks ago, the response, have we got with Bridget and Lieutenant Mason on how we're going to plan to do that 4-hour training? Right. Okay. So some of the other major reform that was an outgrowth of our rally on June the 2nd, and it was just indicated by Vice President Hunter of the NAACP, of our keynote speaker of the evening. And with some of the reforms that we're talking about, other than the 10 shared principles, other reforms, aid can't wait. However, it's been something that the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee have been talking about and trying to put in place. I would say, last maybe 6-8 years probably. But timing is everything, and let me tell you about timing. You can have some things in the works, in your planning, your goals and objectives, and it's just not going to work either because of the political leadership that are in at the current time, or it's just not. Well, Kankakee is also unique. We're unique that of the 42 branches in the Illinois of the NAACP, I would say that Kankakee is the only branch that have a free legal clinic. Kankakee County branch is probably the only branch have 3 pro bono attorneys of our legal clinic, criminal justice committee. But one other thing that Kankakee have is a progressive state's attorney, which means sometime when you're looking at change, again, timing is everything. And at this time, what we want to do, and what was on our docket for years, Chief Cosman, was the possibility of having a citizen review board. And we've already have some people in this room that feel that that's a positive change. So at this time, Mr. Rowe, you want to talk about how we visualize things regarding the citizen review board from your office?
I'm sure everyone in the room is already familiar with what a civilian review board is. Basically, it's where a municipality, it cannot come from the county, it has to come from the individual municipalities. They would form this board, they would have power of appointment to the board, and they could pull people from their own community. Some boards find it to be more effective if they pull people from outside of the community. But they basically sit in the role of an independent watchdog, just to put an independent set of eyes on citizen complaints. So if a citizen makes a complaint about police activity, that board would receive the complaint, they would review it, they would conduct any investigation, or maybe conduct interviews of witnesses or the complainant. They could potentially, if the municipality allows, and I would suggest it strongly considers subpoena power for that board. That doesn't mean that they can access documents and make them public. It means they have access to documents, for instance, a police report, maybe a 911 call, something that wouldn't otherwise be released to the public at that juncture of a case. gives them access to those documents so they have the full scope and all the information when they conduct that review. After the review, the members of the Civilian Review Board would compile a report, and that ultimately that report can be made available to the public, and it would also be sent to your police and fire commission, to your command staff, those that would review it and then make a determination whether there is a need for discipline, and if so, where on the matrix of discipline does the incident kind of fall. There's different models out there. There are some models where the Civilian Review Board actually determines the level of discipline. I think that that can be difficult because you probably have stuff in your union contracts with officers that make that determination. You want to make sure that there is consistency when you kind of hand out discipline. So to have a Civilian Review Board make that final call, I don't know what that model would look like. That's something we'd have to consider. But certainly they can offer their input on it in the review. And then the reports are made public, so the community has some, I guess, insight and the ability to look at what policing is like in their community. Not only if they're on the board, but if they're a member of the public who's concerned. So we've talked before. I've talked with some of the chiefs that indicated an interest in exploring this further within their village or city. We're not trying to take the place of your village or city attorney, but we would be happy to work with them. We have some of the resolutions drafted already. We can work with you on what the models look like. We'd have some individuals in our civil division of the state's attorney's office that may have a better insight on what can be disclosed outside of law enforcement while there's an ongoing investigation, what can't be disclosed. Make sure there's compliance, of course, with FOIA and any Open Meeting Act issues. So we're happy to assist with that. We're happy to finalize the resolution, and we can craft it to whatever model you think would fit your community best. But I think the key takeaways when you're looking at what makes for an effective Civilian Review Board, it's usually an outside set of eyes, people that don't reside in the community, and subpoena power is absolutely necessary for it to be an effective board, because otherwise they're making decisions with less than all the facts.
Are there any questions to our state's attorney? Sure.
Jim, that review board, would that be locally? In other words, Grant Park has their own review board, Herscher has their own review board, etc.?
Correct. It would
Yeah.
have to be each municipality.
Right. Okay.
Jim, can you stress? Go ahead, Chief.
Everybody knows, most of the towns probably in here have, most of the towns here already have a Board of Police and Fire Commissioners. So if there's any suspension over 5 days, so if we're talking about some, use of force, the lethal force or anything like that that's improper, that's probably going to be reviewed by the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners that we already have. The one thing that I heard it wrong. Did you say would be an outside, it wouldn't be residents of the city, it would be from outside the city that would be part of this review board?
Well, each municipality can adopt its own model. So if they wanted to have residents from within their community, but some civilian review boards have found it more effective when you have individuals that, we're not looking at people that reside in another state, but maybe outside of that immediate, outside of that immediate community. Mm-hmm. Because if you have people that are reside within Bradley, and just using Bradley as an example, if you had people that reside within Bradley, they may look at it differently than someone who maybe resides in Bourbonnais. Just kind of an outsider perspective, looking on another community and seeing what policing looks like. But that's up to the municipality to decide if they want local or non-local members of that board. For the Police and Fire Commission, they would make the ultimate determination, Chief, I believe, on discipline, and like when you said, if it's over 5 days suspension.
Yes.
I think what this Civilian Review Board does, where without a Civilian Review Board, the officer is being investigated by fellow members of the department, usually command staff, chief, deputy chief, whoever, lieutenants. The Civilian Review Board would be civilians that conduct that investigation. And there may be a case that perhaps a chief of a police department doesn't believe warrants discipline, or makes a finding that the officer's actions were justified, where the Civilian Review Board may make a different finding, so the Police and Fire Commission would then be provided with both reports. It's sort of making sure that there's another set of eyes on civilian complaints other than members of that officer's department.
So like the city has a city inspector that does the investigation, which is a layperson. You're saying like replace the city inspector with a civilian review board?
I think you could still have the city inspector. That city inspector could work under the department's guidance as well as the Police and Fire Commission's guidance, but the Civilian Review Board would be separate from that.
It might be an improvement, but the only civilian review board that I am aware of ever here from the news or everything is the one in Chicago, and there's always different, so I don't know if that's not saying it's a bad idea, but it's something, I don't know if it's that's gonna solve all of the issues.
Yeah, well, I think that's why we want to be able to craft, and why we want to work with you to craft a local model that works for each municipality. I think in Chicago, for instance, I believe that Civilian Review Board can met out discipline and can make some final decisions, where that's normally not the case. Normally that does go by contract, especially under union contracts. It goes through the Police and Fire Commission if it's excessive punishment, or if it's maybe just a couple days or some sort of suspension, it would go through command staff.
I just want to interject something here, and with Chief Cosman. When we're talking about timing is right, and the draft that our state's attorney was talking about, we being the NAACP drafted 2 to 3 documents that we forwarded to Attorney John Benson, who's a civil rights attorney that sits on our free legal clinic, Marlo Jones, who works out of our Kankakee County State's Attorney Office, along with our state's attorney. The NAACP National Office, our regional office, and the Kankakee County branch of the NAACP, one of the main focus of the mission of the 10 shared principles, when you really start looking at that document, one of the key words is trust. That's what we're dealing with in this new climate. Everything that we do, Captain Harsey, everything that we do today is magnified. So if the 10 shared principles is about building that bridge of trust between law enforcement and our respective communities, it has to be trust. So we have a executive board meeting tonight, the NAACP, and I'm pretty sure that vote is going to be and working with our state's attorney, and I already know there's 1 or 2 chiefs out here that have pretty much already bought in to a citizen review board. They don't see it as thank you. However, this is something that the Kankakee County branch is going to stand firm on. Now, if we can get mostly the majority of all our municipalities to sign in on the 10 shared principles, why not be looking at the Citizen Review Board? Let me tell you what it brings. It brings about trust. It builds a relationship. And you also, and even though Chief Swinford just mentioned about our response team, you're talking about a rainbow of citizens of Kankakee County that's going to make up the response team. Each municipality will bring about trust. But let me just say this. The county seat is the city of Kankakee. Where is the majority of individuals looking like Theodis Pace live? The city of Kankakee. We have to be progressive in our thinking. We have to be progressive in our thinking of, and Alderman Brown mentioned in not this past Monday, but the first meeting of July, the city council meeting, about reviewing all of the policies of the city of Kankakee Police Department and procedures. In this pocket it's just gonna it's gonna bring about more trust as we police our streets. So I'm just saying we're gonna be real hard on men taking the position of pushing for a citizen review board throughout our county, particularly the city of Kankakee, Bradley, Bourbonnais, Mantino, Moments. And I'm just thinking about, I've been here 47 years, and I can remember the days, and Chief Barbara Anderson and Lieutenant Mason, we spent, just 3 hours, matter of fact, 2 weeks ago today. And let me tell you how we spent 3 hours 2 weeks ago today because of the climate. Mr. Yates, the village of Bradley received a call through their dispatch. Mr. Williams, they received a call through the dispatch, and that call was, you need to hurry up, come here, this guy's getting beat up, you guys need to really get here. The person who made the call, Chairman, to the dispatch, gave a description, Captain Harsey, of the description of himself. 3 squads approached the young man because he's coming south from Broadway, south on Schuyler. Well, you got officers patrolling. This young man, Afro-American male, no shirt, earbuds in, so it took them a couple of prompts to get his attention, okay? Profanity is being used. Now, what you think is happening? You get a bypasser going by, and it's video live. 2 weeks ago today, video live, and the person is saying, not on my watch. I'm not going to watch another black man killed on my watch, and they're videotaping. However, one of the officers saying, hey, I think I know this young man. Dispatch calls the number that they receive. What number rings? The phone in his pocket. The phone in his pocket. So now they released him. He's going home. The officers who stated, I think I know this young man, I know where he lives. So young man is walking. He walks past his house. Officers stop because I know where you live, Mr. Hunt. The young man comes back, tried to beat the officer to coming into his house to talk to his grandma. That's the climate that we're in. That's the climate that we're in. Well, you can ask Chief Barber, he's provoking the officer. You can ask Deputy Chief Anderson, was the young man provoking? You can ask Lieutenant Mason. So you have to look at the audio of the calls, the young man's action, and if you're watching the video, his action is, and if you're looking at it, Deputy Chief Hunt, we're going to have another George Floyd. That's the climate that we're in, and we have to have trust. Trust is going to be the key when we don't know how long it's going to be. The same thing as this coronavirus. We have to have trust. The patrol officer who patrols our streets 24/7, I don't care how you look at it. I know Sheriff Downing is the sheriff of Kankakee County, and I know Chief Frank Cosman is the chief of Kankakee, Illinois. But it's that patrolman that is the face of that department. The face of that department. So it's going to have to take some give and take. But it's some things, and I've had a conversation with a couple of police chiefs here, and I do a lot of things by working in the back room. I know how to mitigate things. Vice President Hunter, we got another executive committee member of Lori Gadboys. We got our the president of our youth council. Some things we're just not going to give. Because from 2014, we've been maintaining that we're not going to have a Minneapolis here and we're not going to have a Ferguson here. So whatever we did yesterday, we're going to try to change it today. Our officers are going to be professional. They're going to be citizen friendly. That's what our citizens want. They want our officers, they want the employee of our respective municipality just to be friendly. And that's it. So, yes.
Address this to Chief Cosman. 3 or 4 decades ago, back in the 70s and 80s, this civilian or citizens review board was proposed for the city of Kankakee, if you can believe that, and it fell on deaf ears, and goes back to Durkheim's 8 stages of man. And the first stage, as the president indicated, is trust versus mistrust. So if you take a look at what transpired back in the 70s and 80s, we did not have a person to even second the issue or the motion regarding this particular review panel. So this is where we are right now. When you take a look at what the conditions were back in the city of Kankakee back in the 70s and 80s, we've come a hell of a long way. If you look at this group here, the diversity here, and you guys sitting down working together, back then this would never happen.
You can go back being in the council chamber or the trustee chambers with the village of Bradley when we accepted the 10 shared principles. Timing, and I'm just going to say it. How would Kenny Hayes see you and I and Paulette? I'm just saying in the chambers. Accepting. I mean, I don't know if you have to come to the NAACP office, but the frame, and for the village of Bradley, 10 shared principles. I mean, how people view Bradley going up, and we talked about it, Deputy Chief Anderson, going north and south on Kennedy and Route 50. Nikki, I'm not from here, you are. And how people used to feel if they're going south and north on Route 50 and Kennedy Drive. When I got here, man, I'm Miss Daisy, because that's the climate. State's Attorney.
I just wanted to say, beyond just the review of complaints and investigation of complaints, they play another role.
Right.
They can make policy recommendations, suggestions for maybe new trainings or improvements in existing trainings. They can create what law enforcement often refers to as like a early warning or an at-risk assessment tool. So if an officer continues to get multiple complaints, they can track that and bring that to the attention of command staff, and further build the relationship between the community and law enforcement. And you're not looking for them to, Chief's question earlier about whether you would get rid of the city inspector. You're not looking for the civilian review board to make a review of the police department's review, right? So they're not grading the internal investigation. They're conducting an independent investigation. Because if they're just looking at what another officer has prepared as their investigation, it gives the illusion of oversight, but it really isn't there. So this allows them to conduct a separate and independent eyes-on investigation. Well, usually the way that investigation is conducted, they could conduct the interviews, they could ask that interviews be conducted by either an outside agency, or the majority of it, they're looking at video, they're looking at reports, witness statements. So they're basing their investigation and their review off things that already exist. And if further questioning is done, they can get someone to do that.
Alderman Brown?
So the question was, how do you get subpoena power? Well, that's why each ordinance or each city or village has to pass its own ordinance, because they empower that board with subpoena power through the terms of the ordinance. So you would include that in the resolution.
I just want to add to what you just said, Jim, to Alderman Brown. We have, is it Bloomington, Champaign, and there's other that have civilian review board. But what you really want to have is the subpoena power is the key. And so when I draft and forward it to, again, Attorney Benson and the State's Attorney Office for review, to have some things look at. And you were there on the 2nd of June. That was the main key point that our state's attorney mentioned in his speech. So go ahead.
Shared principle and 8 can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in any of these meetings. That's probably not a good thing. I should have been here. But the fact of the matter is, I know Cry River used to provide a lot of training to police officers. I don't know if that's still true today or not. I guess my question would be, is Cry River into their training, adopted into their training, the 10 shared principles in the 8 can't wait principle? Is that part of that's part of criteria now for police officer training?
Short answer is no. 8 that can't wait, that's brand new, and that's literally just came out. 10 shared principles, they don't have a specific training on that. They offer training in a lot of those factors, but they don't have a specific training on the 10 shared principles. Now, that being said, their training is almost nil right now because of COVID and budget cuts, but they'll get back into training pretty quickly, but they don't have specific training on those.
Well, the only reason I asked that question, it's been my experience, police officers kind of gravitate towards training they receive and training they rely on. And I know if it's from Cry River, it's more reliable. So sometimes the departments is not, they don't have the manpower or the budget to train adequately. So when Cry River do it, it means more to the officers, to me, and I may be out of turn. Like I said, I've been there a long time, but it means more to the officers to come from those kind of agency than in-house to me. That's my comment.
With their limited budget, what they typically focus on are what mandates are, what Illinois mandates police officers to have, and as these become mandates, you're definitely going to see more training on them.
Trainings, but they were all cut. The governor and the state legislature cut their budget drastically. So even some of the regular trainings they provided, they're not able to provide anymore, let alone add new ones.
Lieutenant Mason?
Duty to intercede that I mentioned earlier that we pushed out, that's through Lexipol, which is where our policies and procedures, most of us have this in this room. It's like a nationwide program. That's who pushed that out. So they're kind of starting to go.
You got to speak up, Lieutenant.
So they're starting to go that path with Lexipol and other agencies doing that. So that was a free one that they offered out to us.
Deputy Chief?
Put the videotape in and made a test after it so that our officers had to watch the video and then take a test after it too using their Lexipol system.
Mr. Chairman, Nikki, this is probably more directed at you and some of the other personnel who are here. There have been opportunities that have been afforded to the NAACP when there's a complaint. You know, we physically have gone to the police department to review videotape of a situation, and we do it separately. I don't go with Theodis. Theodis doesn't go with me, or Secretary Paulette Crank doesn't go with me.
Lori, whoever.
Yeah, whomever the person is designated to go and review the tape based on the complaint. Written complaint has been filed with NAACP. We make an independent determination as to if the complaint has merit, and that really helps out. Chief, you want to speak to that? Your experience?
Relationship that we have with the NAACP here. Many years ago, there was an allegation made against one of my officers. Fortunately, we've been blessed with body cameras as well as squad car video cameras for several years. They're a very important investigative tool for us. But anyway, there was an allegation made that an officer acted inappropriately on a traffic stop. A complaint was made. Part of our investigative procedure is following up on that. I, along with our administrative staff, viewed all the applicable video to that. I did not see that there was any appropriate action coming from the officer, but I wanted to take it a step further, and I reached out to Theotis and Steve and let them know what we had. I was very fortunate they took some of their valuable time and independently came to my police department and were provided with the video so they could make their own determination. And after seeing all the video footage, they concurred that there was no wrongdoing on the part of our officer, and therefore we were able to administratively close that complaint as unfounded and have their confidence to know that we're going above and beyond to make sure that we're policing our own.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Anderson, we had a similar situation where we had a couple of people. So
we've been fortunate that our doors have been open for quite a while as far as transparency. It's in our policy, and it's not something that is I guess would be alien to us. When we have a complaint that's made, and we've had complaints by citizens, and we've also had complaints brought to us by your agency, we open our doors to them. Good or bad, the video speaks for itself. And when it's right, it's fine, and when it's bad, we need to improve on it. So we've had a couple instances, 3 or 4 instances, where we have used the transparency, which is part of the shared principles and trust, to invite you in. I also do invite the complainant in. Sometimes, again, they talk about wanting to have a voice in those shared principles. Having a voice for us, just because the officer didn't do anything outside of the policy, we always try to take in consideration. We rely on your expert analysis and outside view. Yeah, the officer didn't do anything outside the policy, but they do something that could be considered rude or aggressive. Because what I may think is rude and aggressive as a police officer, my threshold for you to be rude and aggressive to me is very high. You've got to be really rude and aggressive. Someone else's version of that might be less. That's the biggest thing I've gotten out of our confrontation, our consultation with you, is what does a person consider to be rude or aggressive behavior, and how can we get that information down to our officers? So we've used the transparency and the communication with your office and the citizens to try to bridge that little bit of a gap.
Yeah, and if I may, I could probably say the speeding incident, the one 2 weeks ago, and the one about the cell phone. So actually, we've had 3 incidents in maybe the last 2 months, 5 months, and each one of those where Steve, in this case, it was Paula and some other went in and watched the video, and other than the young lady actually filed a complaint with us, and the committee, Lori, deemed it necessary for investigation. Chairman took the various steps, because first of all, we don't take verbal complaints. It has to be in a written complaint. There's some steps are followed, and so we went investigate, and so those are just the 3 in the last 5 months, and again, what is rude and what is not rude. So I can just simply say what I saw a video yesterday was rude. I don't know if everybody know what I'm talking about, but I saw a video yesterday was rude. And as an administrator all my life, Brother Tynes, all my life I've been an administrator, and the person that did, Chief, what they did yesterday would surely be disciplined. I mean, it's again, everything that we do today is magnified. Everything, because that's the climate that we're living in now. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a question, maybe for Jim. What type of training acumen would a civilian review board member get? Because it seems like you have to have someone who has some idea of subject matter before they're asked to review it. I'm just curious on what's that process.
Again, those are just guidelines that you can set out in the resolution or the ordinance. The most effective civilian review boards have an investigator available to them, former law enforcement, but maybe not from the same department, ideally, and they can tap on that individual's expertise to conduct investigations, interviews. But it really, whatever parameters the local municipality sets. But again, the idea is not to have people with necessarily law enforcement training conducting those reviews. It really is to have a layperson's view of what policing and the culture of policing looks like in their community or in a neighboring community.
Time, the Illinois Department of Human Rights provided training to municipalities. Additionally, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission provided training. In my former life, I was manager of investigations for the Illinois Department of Human Services, the largest agency in the state of Illinois. And we had those individuals come in and provide training to the state-operated facilities in the state. Additionally, you know, those individuals, locations where they do have the review boards, those individuals could come in and provide the training as well too. So there are some experts that provide that. I would assume some of the insurance carriers for the various municipalities probably have that component built in as well too, that they contract with investigators to do that. So there are ways and means and availability of staff to do that.
Any other comments? Doug?
I have a comment how we started the meeting out. I don't know if there's any answers to this, but I'm going to throw it out there for whatever it's worth. But Theodis, you started the meeting talking about what we all have seen over the last 5 weeks on the news. Innocent business owners having their shops looted and their livelihoods destroyed. I'm wondering if the response team and all of you in this room that represent your police departments, if there's a way that we could come up with a list of maybe suggestions or recommendations to pass out to the public, to potential business owners, of what to do in a case like that, because universally across the board, when those business owners who discovered that their livelihood was completely gone, universally they had no idea what to do. They didn't know how to prepare to, if there was anything they could have done to avoid that, or what they do after the fact, or what they do if they're caught in that situation. If each department here, there's quite a few of you here, if you only came up with one suggestion combined, that's a lot of suggestions. And I'm wondering if we could get ahead of it and at least prepare business owners with some ideas of what they might be able to do to protect themselves. I don't know if that's something a response team could help the community prepare for. Like I said, I don't know if there are any answers to prepare for that. But it was tragic to watch innocent business owners scratching their head and just wondering what could I have done.
Nikki?
Microphone, please. Grab the microphone.
General comments. Regarding the civilian review board. And how that, whatever results of that review board, whatever conclusions they reach about a particular case, I'm talking about disciplinary issues in the case of a police officer, that officer has the option of arbitration, which nullifies the Police and Fire Commission right up top, literally. And in the case of with them going to arbitration, where do you perceive civilian review board's recommendations? What's their role in the arbitration situation?
my bottom line is it could pretty much have been not a futile effort, but I want to know something can potentially come out of it. And if it's going to inform the public, that serves their purpose. I'd be conscious, I'd be curious, I'd be cautious about placing too many parameters on who can in fact be on some civilian review board. Because if you place too many caveats on requirements, and as been the case in Kankakee, long as I've been on around here, you'll end up with the same 10 people, literally, on every board and commission here. And that's always been a problem here because it's always been the same group of people, almost to the point of selective group of people, and they've been a part of all the boards and commissions. So nothing changes is my point. And I have no issue with civilian review board at all. I love to see how something like that, something new, something different. Because no matter how you slice it, something's got to change. And I think we're all aware of a simple fact. We're in a transformational period, whether we like it or not. The old normal is gone. Something new is going to come up regardless. And we all need to keep in mind this simple fact. Once you press people too far and beyond some point, whatever that point is, and however far it goes to get to that point, their response isn't guaranteed to be what you thought it was going to be. All these riots we're seeing all over the country, who would have expected that? Snatching down statues, who would have thought of that? But once you push people far enough, you can't anticipate what response they're going to give you. But a corner rat's going to fight, no matter how you slice that. I saw a Facebook post a couple of days ago, and I'll shut up. It said what we're seeing right now across the country is 30 years of poor parenting and a generation that now wants everything for free. What I sent that individual back on Facebook was a video, kind of lengthy, 11 minutes, but it lays it out real quick. What we're really seeing is 400 years of bad policy. 400 years, 401 to be exact, years of bad policy. And the result of that 400 years, 244 years of slavery, followed by us getting us free, followed by Jim Crow, followed by vagrancy laws, followed by policy after policy that put something in place to where people are now responding to that. And whether we like it or not, this is what we're dealing with. And the result ain't going to be, and I emphasize, ain't going to be pretty. No matter how you slice that. And that's part of what we need to come to grips with. There's an elephant in the room, and sooner or later you got to address the elephant. Race matters here, y'all. Race matters. And I don't know an entity on earth that's not going to, man is not a human, man is not some flower that's going to sit in the corner and wither away. Man's going to fight to live and survive.
Thank
The Citizen Review Board, this is a suggestion. I strongly believe that you're going to have to train the board in terms of policing issues, in terms of Section 1983, as well as the use of force continuum, because the average citizen, they don't know about the use of force. That's the issue. Training is one of the most essential things. Training is also how to be, teach them that they are a public servant, not a Gestapo type army. But training is the issue for the review board, because the average citizen does not know policies and procedures. They don't know use of force. They don't know probable cause. They don't know about the Section 1983 when one is liable under the Constitution. They don't know that, so they have to be trained.
Thank you.
On police and fire commissions, and I don't believe that there's a set standard or criteria. They can obtain training, but I don't think you have to have meet any certain metric to sit on that board. So a system like that has existed. The problem is that, or not the problem, but the reality is, police and fire commission though is depending upon a review and an investigation conducted by law enforcement, as opposed to an investigation conducted by civilians who are in that community being policed by that department.
So, Nikki, you're on the police and fire chief. So, is there any parameters set up for that committee for training? I was.
The Illinois Fire and Police Association's Commissioners Association meets twice a year. April, generally in Naperville, and then in October in Springfield. This virus situation has nullified both of those for this particular year. And there's a number of different training seminars that you attend, up to 7. None of which are required, or they're all required per se, but none of which will prevent a person from getting on the Police and Fire Commission throughout the state of Illinois. And beyond that, no, there are no specific requirements other than the fact that you accept the selection and certainly in Kankakee, approval by the City Council.
All right. Any other questions?
Wondering, how will you go about the selection of these members on this board?
Something that is written into the resolution or the ordinance that the municipality passes. It could be mayoral appointment. It could be by appointment of the mayor with advice and consent of the council, so their aldermen or trustees have to approve the appointment. It could be a selection process by the Police and Fire Commission that exists. It all depends on how the municipality wants it to be. Because ultimately, any ordinance has to have the majority vote of the council or the board. So they're going to have to approve it, so they're really going to be able to write it. But the public should have input in that process.
Board meeting, the community should have some form of like say-so into like who they elect to be in these positions. So is there a possibility for an election to take place, or a possibility for the community to have a say-so in who was elected?
You probably couldn't turn it in. I'm sorry. You probably couldn't turn that into an election. I don't know that you would want to. We got enough
like
elections.
election.
I don't know if you'd want to turn that into an election, but you're right. I would agree. I think there should be some community input into who's selected. But ultimately, the government, the local unit of government, is going to decide who picks those people. So.
Question.
Yes. Some of you in here have been involved where you've been racially profiled. I know I have, and it's been probably a few times where the Kankakee police have pulled me over or whatever. And one incident, it was this same cop. He just kept running into me and pulling me over. He wanted to see my ID and what am I doing? And all I do is work. I'm in a work truck. Most of the cops know I just work. Maybe he doesn't know me. But, that stuff like that has got to stop. Something I haven't seen lately is cops walking the neighborhood. I don't understand that. When they walk the neighborhood, they engage with people. They get to know their face. It builds a closer relationship. Then people tend to start trusting you because they see your face. They don't just see you driving by in a car. You don't know them. You don't see them. So get out on a bike. Walk. Stop. Talk to people. Let them see you. Let them know your name. You get to know their name. Let's build a relationship. That's where that trust comes in. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. For the members, we had, for the email that went out on June the 22nd, and we indicated that we were going to meet on Thursday the 23rd and August 19th. Jim, you indicated that we have what, Sheriff?
That's the Eastern Illinois Chiefs meeting is the 19th.
So do we want to move it to, is it? No? We're going to leave it 19th? All right, 19th at noon then. So it is. Here. 19th here. And so that's our next meeting date. And before I call for adjournment, Mr. Springer, congratulations. Mr. Springer will be the new police chief at the Kankakee Community College.
I appreciate I truly appreciate all the support that was given to me by surrounding chiefs from our departments within the community, within the county, even outside of the county. As for state, even some federal FBI's that written me recommendation letters. And not only that, even by the word of mouth. You know, I've always been a person that I'm a very low-key person. I'm a very professional person. I believe in helping, but with my type of policing that I do, I believe in bringing the young generation up. I'm a college police chief, so I get to deal with a lot of young individuals on a professional level, on a college level. I instituted a program to where myself and Bridget Bertrand came up with a program to where our law enforcement students, kind of like an internship, and within that, I've had maybe one or two individuals that's went on to be police officers. Actually, Sheriff Downey here hired one of my interns here to work in the guardhouse, and I just encourage them all to build relationships with officers. You know, if you're out and about, I tell them, you're out and about, this is your career, where you want to go, introduce yourself. Let that officer know what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and start to build in relationships. And they don't have an idea how far that will take them. You know, just that putting their name out there, introducing yourself to individuals. But I do appreciate all the support that this community has given me in the past 17 years. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, a lot of times individuals don't get a chance to really see the fruit of their labor. And again, we started this back in 2014, and our first couple of meetings was Deputy Chief Hunt, Chief Ringy, Johnson from Bradley, Feltz, and Mantino. And this meeting have mushroom. Oh, and don't forget the sheriff, he said. But on a real serious note, when you have, you know, Captain Harsey from the Illinois State Police, you got Chief Skelly from St. Anne, we have Aroma Park, we have Herscher. So basically, we have all our major municipalities that's in this meeting to ensure that we're on one accord. Are we going to always agree? No. But it's about communicating. That's all it is. And I'm just saying 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, could we have been able to communicate? I think everybody in here I have on speed dial. The person sitting to my right, 11 o'clock, 11:15, Limestone, Herscher, Route 17, wherever. You can pick up the phone, and Deputy Chief Hunt, and I'm just saying again, I challenge, I'm telling you, there's sometimes in our own respective communities, we have to look at ourselves. And when you're home, and I'm saying I'm home, Brother Times, even the Lord Jesus Christ had to do miracles at home. We're more revered away from home. And I'm saying we have to be humble and look at the work that we do. Are we going to agree? No. But we can pick up the phone and call. I don't think it's been a time that I've called anybody in this room, they did not answer, respond to a text or email. And so we're just going to have to continue to do the miracles at home. I mean, that's what it's home. We can go, people are going to look at this YouTube and going to say, wow. But we're going to get some comments, and some other individuals not going to see this as fruitful. So we just have to keep doing what we're doing, and we just have to keep doing those miracles. So it's normally we don't even go past an hour, so we're at an hour and 21 minutes. So can we get a motion to our meeting at August 19th at 12 noon? Second? All right, thank you.